Hi everyone, it's John Mitchell, and in today's video, we're going to look at the different types of management skills that managers use when leading a business. Now, when we're referring to management skills, we're talking about the competencies that they have to help them achieve the business objectives. Now, managers will often use a whole range of different skills to achieve those objectives, and the skills that they use will often depend on the management style that they use or the situation that they are in. And in this video, we're going to talk about the 6 different management skills that are in our study design, and they are communication, delegation, planning, leadership, decision making, and interpersonal. Our first skill is communication, which is the transfer of information from one person to another. Managers need to be able to communicate with key stakeholders both inside the business and outside the business. That's where you see those terms internally and externally. And communication can come in many forms. For example, a manager may be able to communicate verbally, maybe through emails, reports, and all different forms of communication. It's important that the manager is able to communicate clearly because it ensures that everyone understands the tasks and goals that they're working towards. The employees understand exactly what they need to do when their manager is able to communicate. Also, help the manager get feedback and guidance from the stakeholder if two-way communication is being used. And so the manager may decide to use that one-way communication where it's just them providing information to the employees, or they may decide to listen to that feedback, as I mentioned, where they're using two-way communication. And you can see a typical communication loop in the diagram on the right there, where the message is being sent to the recipient or the receiver, and then feedback is provided back to the sender, who is the manager. Next, we have delegation, which is where the manager passes on authority and responsibility to an employee for them to carry out tasks or possibly to carry out decision making in some instances. Now, delegation can have benefits for both the manager and the employee. For the manager, it helps free up their time to focus on other tasks as the workload is now shared by them actually passing on responsibility of tasks or decision making to others. And now that can be important to help lighten their workload daily, but it also can be important if the manager is focused on a particular project or the business is implementing something new. They can the manager can delegate to the employees, so then they can start to spend, or the manager can spend more time focusing on what's important at that time. And for the employees, when they've been delegated to, they may feel more valued, and also it can help develop their skills and knowledge by taking on other responsibilities that aren't normally part of their daily tasks. So overall, delegation can help improve the efficiency of the business because more work is able to be completed because that workload is shared. Another important skill is that of planning, which is the ability to set objectives and then outline the strategies that will help achieve those objectives. Planning helps provide direction for everyone involved in the business. It helps ensure that objectives are achieved on time and in budget by setting out the exact things that need to be achieved in order to achieve that end goal. And effective planning can help a manager stay organized, enables them to prioritize tasks, be efficient with resources. And so, what you'll find is that managers will often be involved in different types of planning, such as, and we call them strategic planning, tactical planning, or operational planning, where strategic planning is that long term planning. Often, sort of, the senior manager will be involved in those. Tactical planning being the medium term plans, and then operational planning is that short term, day to day type plans and type goals where they're setting out exactly what needs to be achieved. Now, when a manager is undertaking planning, they will typically go through a set of steps to come to that sort of final plan. And these steps include, firstly, setting the objective on what they actually are looking to achieve. Next, they would be analysing the environment. So that gives the manager information so that they can implement a really effective plan. And it could be that if it's a significant plan, they may decide to go through what's called a SWOT analysis, where the manager looks at the strengths and weaknesses of the business. So the S and W stand for strengths and weaknesses. That gives a really clear picture of where the business is sitting. And then the manager will look to opportunities that may be available for them to take advantage of, as well as any threats that the business may be facing. So then, armed with that information, the next step is for the manager to develop alternatives. So these alternatives are possible options that the manager can take in terms of these strategies that they can implement to achieve that objective that they're setting out. And then the manager would analyze each of those alternatives, choose the best one, and then implement the plan. And then finally, once it's been implemented, the final step is for the manager to monitor the results of the plan to determine if it's actually achieved the objectives set out in step one. The next skill we're going to look at is leadership. So, leadership is the ability of a manager to motivate and inspire others towards the achievement of business objectives. Effective leadership, it helps build trusts between the management and the employees. That's really important to create a positive environment. So, effective leaders will lead by example as well as support the employees or other stakeholders that are finding anything challenging within the business. And it also helps build that positive environment where everyone's working towards a common goal. They're communicating, listening, supporting each other, challenging those that are not on board. They're all positive things that a strong leader or effective leadership will actually undertake. So think about your favorite leaders, whether they be your school leaders, leaders in sport, politics, or business, whatever your interest is in. Think about the impact that they have on a group. You'll probably find that those really strong leaders are able to inspire others and get them to come on a journey so that everyone's working towards a common goal and they're able to get the best out of people. Decision making is another key skill in our study design, and it's where the manager is able to choose the best course of action from a range of alternatives. So, a manager that's able to use effective decision making will normally ensure that the best strategies are implemented, and that can help the business achieve their objectives and drive them forward into a really prosperous future. However, history is littered with managers that make poor decisions, and that can really harm the business and its people. Now, if you get asked about a decision making process, the diagram on the right is a typical process that you're able to use. So it's really similar to the planning process that we looked at earlier. First step in the decision making process is for the manager to identify the objective. They would then gather information to help them make informed decisions. Armed with that information, they then start to develop alternatives. Remember, this is choosing the best option from a range of alternatives. So that each one is analyzed, each of those alternatives analyzed, and the best one is chosen and implemented. Once it's been implemented or the decision's been made and it's been implemented, the final step is then to evaluate to see if the decision has actually enabled the business to achieve its desired outcome that's obviously been set in the first step there. And lastly, interpersonal skills are another important aspect of management, and they're the ability of a manager to interact with others and build positive relationships. So, a manager that's able to use interpersonal skills effectively can enable them to get employees on board, working towards a common goal. And also, the manager is able to communicate honestly with the employees because the employee, because of that relationship, is more likely to be accepting of any communication that is delivered from the manager. It also enables the business to create a sense of belonging within the business because the interpersonal skills help develop a collaborative and harmonious environment. And it can also help reduce disputes within the business, can help get the best out of employees because they feel valued and part of a team. So that takes us through the 6 skills in our study design. But before we finish up, we need to look at the relationship between management styles and management skills. If you think about the management styles that we looked at in previous videos, we spoke about how they use different forms of communication and decision making. So you can see that the management style is often a direct reflection of the skills that are being used. So, for example, you can see here I've got an autocratic manager. Well, they often rely heavily on one way communication and centralized decision making. Whereas the participative manager relies on two-way communication and decentralized decision making, but also relies more heavily on interpersonal skills, which the autocratic simply does not. So each style relies more heavily on different management skills, and you just need to be able to explain the different relationships between those skills and the styles. So, just to recap, management skills are the competencies that managers use to help them achieve business objectives. And there's 6 skills that we went through that are in our study design: communication, delegation, planning, leadership, decision making, and interpersonal. And just remember, you do need to be able to explain the relationship between the skills and the styles, like we looked at in the example in the previous slide. So that brings us to the end of this video. It was a longer one than normal, and I really do apologize for that, but I just thought it was best to get through the 6 skills in one video rather than breaking it up into 2. So for questions, activities, and help in your VCE journey, then come on over to teachingbubble.com.